Welcome back to Breakdown. We discussed the SEC and Big Ten, two dominant conference in the collegiate sport world. My name is Joe McClure, and with me today is my son.
I'm JJ McClure.
Today we're going to discuss we're going to review the NCAA tournament Sweet 16. We're going to review the Elite Eight, and then we're going to preview the Final Four. We're focusing on Big Ten and SEC schools. In the Sweet 16, there were 3 games involving those schools. There was Michigan versus Florida State, Arkansas versus Oral Roberts, and Alabama versus UCLA. The Michigan-Florida State game we will do first. That score, Michigan won 76-58. JJ, what about that? What about that game? What about what Michigan did impress you in that game? What did Michigan do that impressed you in that game?
Yeah, that was a good game for Michigan. They won by almost 20. They were very, very effective getting what they wanted at the rim. Michigan, I think they scored 1 3-pointer in the second half. Maybe it was 2, but they got everything that they wanted at the rim, and that was a very athletic team that they went up against, and that was one of the criticisms in the Big Ten, that Big Ten had the skill and they might have the brawn and the size, but they lacked the athleticism. But Michigan proved that they could do that, and I think the play of their two wings, Brennan Johns and Franz Wagner, I think they had 14 points and 13 points respectively against Florida State. Hunter Dickinson also added 14. It was a very balanced attack, and Johns and Franz Wagner did a very excellent job of scoring. Franz had 5 assists. Johns got to the line frequently, so that was impressive for me.
Okay, that was a Big Ten school. Michigan moving on from the Sweet 16. Go to the Southeast Conference now. Arkansas versus Oral Roberts. Arkansas won 72-70. Was this a lucky win for Arkansas?
In a lot of ways, it was, but I would say in more ways, the right team won, the better team won. They were not as effective against Oral Roberts as they had been the previous time that they met in 2020. They only shot 38%. They didn't even shoot 38%. They shot a little less than 38% from the rim. They only had 11 rebounding advantage, whereas the last time they played Oral Roberts had a 26 rebounding advantage. They shot 11% from 3. Yeah, they did shoot 87% from the free throw line. So,
okay, that sent Arkansas on to the Elite Eight from the Sweet 16. The next and last team from these two conferences to compete in the Sweet 16 would have been Alabama versus UCLA. And UCLA won that 78-88 in overtime. JJ, if these two teams were to play 5 times, who would win the most games?
Well, you did say win the overtime, which showed it was very evenly matched. I would go with Alabama if they played 5 times.
Okay. I just want to say on the free throws in that game, both teams shot the same number of free throws. They both shot 25. Alabama made 11, and UCLA made 20. So Alabama shot 44% from the free throw line as a team, and UCLA shot 80. And Alabama shot a reasonable free throw percentage in that game. It probably never would have gone to overtime. So they can only blame themselves for that loss, from my perspective. So go ahead and say something.
Oh, I just remember reading something where Alabama missed the most free throws of a team that took that many in the past 10 years.
It looked like it in the game. I don't know what it was, but it did not look good for Alabama when it came to free throw. So that's a review of the Sweet 16. 2 wins, 1 losses for both conferences. Moving on to the Elite Eight, there were 2 teams, one from the SEC, one from the Big Ten. Big Ten pitted Michigan against UCLA. That was a game that UCLA won 51 to 45. JJ, give me your take on that game.
I think that was a game that proved Isaiah Livers' worth. I think that was a game where he would have been very effective. Johnny Juzang had 27, 28 points. I can't remember exactly, but I know he had over 55% of UCLA's scoring output in that game. And I think our best stopper, or Michigan's best stopper in Isaiah Livers, would have been very, very effective. That was also a game which was Franz Wagner's worst game in a Michigan uniform, and he picked a very inopportune time to have that. He only made one shot. I think he was 1 for 11, but he might have been 1 for 9. I don't know, but I know he didn't make multiple shots, and he turned the ball over very often. Speaking of turnovers, Hunter Dickinson turned the ball over. I think it exposed Mike Smith. I think that was just a game that was it was a very good defensive struggle, but other than that, it was.
Well, one thing I will say about UCLA, they beat the Big Ten's leader in Michigan. They beat the SEC's best team in the SEC in Alabama, as we said earlier. Additionally, UCLA beat Michigan State in overtime. So the UCLA has pretty much run through the SEC and the Big Ten. And congratulations to them for making it to the Final Four game. Michigan in that game scoring 49 points. Their next previous low point total was 53 in a 53-76 loss to Illinois back on March the 2nd. So that was a tough day for Michigan, although it was close. It was a close game. The other game in the Elite Eight pitted Arkansas against Baylor, where Baylor won by 9. They won 81 to 72. JJ, what was Arkansas missing that would have enabled them to compete against a team like Baylor?
They were missing anyone on earth that could have stopped Davion Mitchell.
Okay.
Yeah, to go enter sport, I would say he reminded me of Tyreek Hill and just his ability to create separation at will, and the way you had to guard him, you had to account for him at all times. You couldn't just have one person on him. You had to have like the backline defense positioned properly to help when he inevitably blew by Devo Davis or whoever was guarding him.
Okay.
And that was what Arkansas was missing was someone to guard him, but they were also missing their best player, Moses Moody. They'd been missing him for most of the tournament. And he hasn't stepped up in a while, and Justin Smith and him didn't have great games the past couple of games. So
I concur. Another thing that stood out in that game to me was the 3-point shooting. Baylor took 15. They made 8 of them. That's a 53% from the 3-point line. Arkansas took 11. They made 3. That's a 27%. But basically, Arkansas was outclassed in this game. I think it was evident that they were outclassed, and Baylor has some awesome guards. Speaking of Arkansas, I just heard that today one of their players is entered the transfer portal. And one day in the near future, we are going to do a podcast and highlight some of the aspects of the transfers, how they've impacted college basketball. So stay tuned for that. I was hoping to get to it today, but that won't happen today, but soon.
In the meantime, you will be missed, Desi Sills, Jonesboro's finest. You'll be missed in Fayetteville.
It's going to be interesting to see where he goes. JJ, now let us move on to the Final Four. We're going to preview the Final Four. Quickly, can you tell me how many former SEC players are going to be in the Final Four this year?
Oh, well, there's going to be a few. UCLA's best player played at Kentucky last year. He actually didn't play that often. That's why he's now UCLA's best player. Let me think. I know Baylor has a transfer, Davion Mitchell, for example.
Yes, he's from Auburn.
Yeah. There's also Reggie Chaney from Arkansas. I know that, and
Okay, so we got 3 SEC players.
well,
Okay, go ahead.
oh, I thought. Oh, so that's just in this game specifically, or in
In
the
the
time?
Final Four.
Oh, okay. Well, we also have Andrew Nimhard from Gonzaga.
Where did he go to school?
He played
Player.
at Florida last year.
Oh man, very very good. So that's impressive slate. We could take those 4 players, put them together, and grab one other guy, and we'd have a pretty decent team. But that's the way it is. The transfer portal is a very key to basketball.
Yeah, they all are starters at their current school. So yeah,
Yeah,
and they're all in the Final Four. So
very good. So now that we're down to the Final Four, there's no Big Ten teams, and there's no SEC teams. Both conference lost its remaining long team in the Elite Eight, as we went over before, when Arkansas lost to Baylor and Michigan lost to UCLA. That knocked the SEC and the Big Ten out of the Final Four. For the tournament, the Big Ten went 8-9. The SEC for the tournament went 7-6. The Big Ten had 8 wins from 9 teams. The SEC had 7 wins from 6 teams. In retrospect, JJ, reviewing the competition, the games and all, what letter grade do you assign the SEC for its play in this tournament?
I'd give them a solid B. Relative to expectations, I'd say that they exceeded them marginally.
Marginally, okay.
Yes.
Okay, then what letter grade do you give the Big Ten for its play in the tournament?
Give them a D minus.
Can you say that again? I cannot believe you really would think that they would be a D minus. They sent 9 teams to the tournament.
Oh, I thought we were talking tournament performance, not regular season performance.
Well, we are talking tournament.
Okay, so I'll give them a D minus for their tournament performance.
Okay, they were barely under 500.
How many Big Ten teams were in the Sweet 16?
1.
Yeah, you send 9 teams. In what half of those seeds were 1 or 2 seeds. Half of those teams, so you should probably 1 or 2 seeds by definition are expected to make it to the Elite 8. They are favored in the games against.
Yeah, I will agree. I will agree. It's tough to give
Yeah, what
a
grade
D-minus,
what grade would you give them if you?
I'd probably give them a D.
Okay. So yours, you give them a slight better.
Yeah, a D minus is pretty bad, man.
Okay. Well.
Okay. Speaking of the Final Four, there is 2 1 seed, 1 2 seed, and 1 11 seed. What's wrong with that picture?
Nothing's wrong with it. That's college basketball.
Okay, I agree with that. It's odd though that 1 2 1 1 2 and 11. UCLA barely made the tournament. They had to do they call a play-in or first in game or whatever they call it. I can't remember the name of it. They got there, they won. How impressive has UCLA been for you?
UCLA has been incredibly impressive. They went from the first 4 to the Final 4, and I would never have anticipated this. I mean, they're projected to be a top 5 team next year, but yeah, they have a lot. All their contributors are underclassmen, and led by Johnny Juzang. But
Well, let me interrupt you for a moment, because what I'm going to do, I'm going to ask you to give me a scouting report of the 4 teams that are remaining in the tournament. And I will let you begin with any team you want to begin with.
well, since I'm talking about UCLA, I'll continue with UCLA. Well, yeah, Johnny Juzang is their leading scorer in the regular season. He's upped his scoring in the postseason. He's been playing on a bad ankle, but it hasn't seemed to affect him. He's been, consistently averaging 25 to 30 or putting up numbers like that. And he's a, sophomore from California by way of Kentucky last year. Tiger Campbell's a sophomore from Des Moines, Iowa. He's their point guard. He's their setup man.
The one with the heavy hair.
Yeah, you can't you don't miss Tiger Campbell when you see him. The nickname is kind of self-evident. I don't even know if that's why, but I'm gonna assume it's because his hair looks like a mane. That's how he got the name Tiger. But yeah, Jules Bernard is not a sharp shooter, sniper from three. He averages he shoots like 39%. Same thing as Jamie Jaquez. He's their do everything. From garbage man, versatile forward, but he can shoot it from deep too. He can really shoot it. He's an irritant on defense, but he shoots 39% from three as well. They just have a really great shooting team, and that's how they beat you. Mick Cronin, he's a guy from Big Ten country. He's from Cincinnati. He coached at Cincinnati the past 8-9 years, and this is his second year in UCLA. He's made it to the tournament. Obviously, no one made the tournament last year, but the previous 8-9 tournaments, he was doing that for Cincinnati. And though not a Big Ten school, it's in a Big Ten footprint area, and he plays with a Big Ten style. Okay. It's not super flashy, but they have shooters. They really do.
Okay, their game against Michigan was extremely low scoring. I would take some of that to be Michigan's lack of shooting, but how good of defense do they play? Can they slow Gonzaga down?
Yeah, I mean they play excellent defense. Jaquez is their best defender, but everyone can really guard their man for the most part, with the exception of Johnny Juzang. He's not the best one-on-one defender or team defender, but he's still 6'6", and he tries and he gives effort.
Okay. So moving on to your next team, we got UCLA broken down. Who's going to break down next?
Okay, well, they're playing against Gonzaga.
Okay.
That's the easiest team to break down. They have a top 5 pick at point guard.
And
Jalen Suggs. Okay. He's a freshman from Minnesota. He's the guy that they go to whenever they need it. No one can really stay in front of him. He has that type of explosiveness and speed.
Jalen Suggs is the highest recruit ever to attend Gonzaga, correct or wrong?
For now, yeah.
Okay. Go ahead with your breakdown. I'm sorry.
They also have Joel Ayayi. He's another guard, wingman. He's probably the least renowned member of the starting 5, as Corey Kispert, Drew Timme, and Jalen Suggs have all made some form of All-American first, second, third, or honorable mention team. So, and Andrew Nimhard was a 5-star coming out of high school, transfer from Florida. We've already talked about him. So, but Joel Ayayi rounds out that quintet, and he fills in between the gaps. Corey Kispert is their sniper. He's the shooter that worked himself into a first-round draft pick. Drew Timme, he's a collegiate wonder. I don't know if his game translates to the next level, but he cannot be stopped, as it appears, on the college level. So he just has a bag full of post moves that he can go to at any given time, and more athletic players can't really do anything with him.
Okay, Gonzaga, of the team playing in the Final Four, Gonzaga is the only team that did not play a Big Ten or SEC team during the tournament. So we got Gonzaga and UCLA broken down. Keep that in mind, because later on I'm going to ask you to pick a winner between that game. But now we move on to the Houston-Baylor matchup. Give me a breakdown.
That is not going to be the...
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, what were you about to say?
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, well, that is not going to be the most similar of matchups. You have one team that has a bunch of guards in Baylor that play aesthetically pleasing basketball. A lot of guys that can score it. You have Maceo Teague and Jared Butler, the first team All American, and Davion Mitchell. They remind me of Villanova's guards or Illinois' guards Illinois from 2005 or Villanova from I believe 2007. Just those 3 guard, 4 guard lineups where anyone can score. They just whoever has the third best defender, you just pass the ball around and give the ball to him, and that's the guy that's gonna have a hot night. That's what Baylor reminds me of, and they also have a lot of talent off the bench and Matt Meyer. He's a highly touted recruit, 6'9", versatile forward that can shoot it or put it on the floor. They play a very aesthetically pleasing game, brand of basketball, and Houston does not. They don't shoot it very well from the 3. Outside of Quentin Grimes, he's their best offensive player. He's their leading scorer. He's the transfer from Kansas in his junior season. He's their co-best player. Dijon Giroux is their best player on defense, and he's the backcourt main. He's a Pat Beverly clone, except for a little bit taller.
I love Pat Beverly.
Big Suey.
Yes, sir.
So he's their best player on defense, but they get it done by rebounding and offensive rebounding. They figure if they don't get a good shot, they don't have great shooters on the first attempt, they'll create good shots via offensive rebounding, and it's worked in their league and in their conference. And to your earlier point, I have picked against them a little bit, and haven't always believed in them. So I've obviously been a bit of a skeptic as it pertains to their conference. But I mean, Memphis won the NIT, so apparently the American Conference is better than I've been giving it credit for.
Okay, so they could possibly win the NCAA tournament and the NIT. Time will tell.
Have 2 champions.
After breaking down the 4 teams, hypothetically, if you could pick any 5 players from these 4 teams to create your own team, who would you pick? And tell me the school that they're from. Give me the player and the school.
Okay, so all-star team from any of the Final Four teams. Okay, well, I'll obviously pick.
And give me the position as well.
At point guard, I'll take Jalen Suggs.
Okay, from
Gonzaga.
Okay.
He would be my first pick. At shooting guard, I would take Davion Mitchell from Baylor.
Okay.
To man the three, I would take Johnny Juzang from UCLA.
Johnny J. Okay.
At the center position, I would take Drew Timme from Gonzaga, and just to be a little different, at the other forward position, I would take Matt Meyer from Baylor.
You left Houston out in the cold.
Well, I'm consistent, if nothing else.
Okay, so Baylor got 2 players, Gonzaga got 2, UCLA got 1, Baylor got none. Interesting.
Baylor has 1.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Houston has none.
That's my bad. I forgot. Your shooting guard is from Baylor,
Yeah.
but Houston has none. My bad.
And, apologies to Giroux and to Quentin Grimes, but
Okay.
I like scoring. I like offense.
Back really quickly to the Big Ten. John Beilein took 2 teams to the national championship games. In 2013, his team that consisted of Trey Burke, Nick Starkus, Glenn Robinson III, Tim Hardaway, Mitch McGarry, Spike Albert, Karis LeVert. That was Beilein's 13 team. He went to the championship game again in 2018, where he had Xavier Simpson, Muhammad Ali Abdul Rahman, Mova, Charles Matthews. Tell me.
And Jordan Poole, Duncan Robinson. Don't want to forget them.
Okay. They're also around now. Tell me, and Isaiah Livers was on that team as well.
Yes, so is Eli Brooks.
That's true. Tell me this. Is Juwan Howard's team as good as the 13 and 18 teams that John Beilein had?
Well, by results, Absolutely not. They made it to the championship game. He made it to the Elite Eight.
Okay, so they won 2 games more. Okay,
Yeah.
but by quality, by individual talent, how would you rate them?
Well, the 2013 team is not even close. Absolutely not. The 2013 team had, I think, 6 or 7 first-round picks on that team. Nick Stauskas was one. Glenn Robinson the third was a second-round pick, so he does not count. Karis LeVert, Nick Stauskas, Trey Burke, Mitch McGarry. Glenn Robinson was not a first-rounder. He went second round. He went 40th, I believe. But Hardaway, he was a first-rounder. So they had 5 first-rounders for sure.
Okay, so the 13 team was more talented than this one. Is this team? How does this team compare with the latest 2018 team that went to play for the national championship game?
That team only had 2 first-rounders in Jordan Poole and Mo Wagner. And I think that they compare a lot better, especially had Isaiah Livers played. I would take senior year Isaiah Livers and senior year Eli Brooks over their freshman counterparts. But Charles Matthews probably would have gotten drafted, maybe not in the first round, but he probably would have gotten drafted had he not tore his ACL during a workout the year he entered the draft. But Duncan Robinson is making himself a lot of money right now, shooting his way through Miami as a starter for the Miami Heat. You saw him in the NBA Finals. And, Jordan Poole is starting for the Golden State Warriors right now. And Mo Wagner, I think he's a Celtic now. Got traded a couple times. But they had a couple of first-rounders on that team. I think Michigan will have at least one in Franz Wagner. And I think Isaiah Livers will play in the NBA for a while if he can stay healthy. Hunter Dickinson, Hunter Dickinson obviously was the All-American and the Wooden Award candidate. So I think that they're somewhat comparable, but without Isaiah Livers, I would give the edge to the 2018 team. But with Isaiah Livers, I'd still give it the edge to the 2018 team just because I like Isaiah. Not Xavier. I like Xavier Simpson better than Mike Smith at the point guard. I think that's the deciding factor.
Okay. Well, we're getting close to wrapping this up. You got about 3 or 4 more minutes. I'm going to ask you some questions really quickly if I can. Number one, if this were a 3-and-out tournament, the Final Four, if it was a 3 out of 5 tournament rather than a 1-and-done tournament, which team would benefit most from a 3 out of 5?
Well, yeah, the larger the sample size, that favors the best team, and that is Gonzaga.
Okay. Which of the 4 teams has the best playmaker? UCLA, Houston, Baylor, Gonzaga?
I think it's a toss-up between Gonzaga and Baylor.
Okay, who are they?
Jalen Suggs and Davion Mitchell.
Okay, Suggs is a freshman. What class is Mitchell?
He's a junior.
Okay.
Or maybe a sophomore. I can't remember. He transferred from Auburn. So.
Okay. Which team has the most dominant big man?
Gonzaga.
Okay, so Gonzaga has the most dominant big man. They tied with the best playmaker.
Yeah, offensively, I believe Ken Pom has them as the historically greatest team in the history.
Say it again.
In the history of in the Ken Pom era, college basketball analytics website, it's like the go-to reference point. I think they have the best offense, the best 2-point offense in the history of the Ken Pom era.
Gonzaga does.
Yes, so they
Okay. Which team has the most underappreciated starter, and who is he?
Well, that was absolutely Gonzaga, and that's either Joel Ayayi or Andrew Nimhard. I would give the edge to Joel.
JJ, it sounds like you're making a Gonzaga commercial or something. Every question I ask you is Gonzaga. Is Gonzaga that good?
Relative to the field, yeah.
Okay.
Although Butler has always been closer to being in Gonzaga's category, I think, than everyone else's. And I think that they've done a good job of living up to their expectations as well. I said Baylor.
Okay, you said Butler. I was about to ask
Jared Butler of Baylor. Sorry to conflate that. I meant Baylor. Baylor has lived up to their expectations as well. They had a slight dip coming from a COVID recess. But
Well,
other than that, they've been phenomenal too.
I'm interested in the play Saturday. The first game on Saturday, I can't remember, was it Houston Baylor or I think it's Houston Baylor. I'm gonna say Houston Baylor. They're the almost 5 something, almost 6 o'clock game. Who you got in that game? Houston and Baylor.
I have Baylor.
Will it be a fun game to watch?
If Houston makes it close, it will absolutely not be. But also, if
Wait a minute,
Houston
you
doesn't
losing?
make it, well, because the only way Houston can win is by mucking it up and making it an ugly game.
Okay, let me go back. Will it be a fun game to watch? I'm confused.
And my point is, Houston does not make for fun games based on the way that they play.
Okay,
That's
that
what I okay.
that 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 explains
So
that
it's
to
kind
me.
of a catch-22 was kind of like my point because
Will it
if
be
Baylor's executing on all cylinders, Houston won't be able to compete and it'll be a blowout. And if Houston is doing what they need to do to win, it's gonna be a mudslinging game, and they're gonna get physical with Baylor. Kind of like the Seattle Seahawks secondary back when the days of the what would they call it? Richard Sherman. What was that? What was the name for the?
their nickname? I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. Well, the final game on Saturday, UCLA and Gonzaga. If UCLA plays its very best game of the year, how badly do they beat Gonzaga?
They'll win a close game in overtime, or like they did against Michigan State, or it'll be a 2-point game in regulation, like they did against Michigan. If they play their absolute best game and they're firing on all cylinders.
Or overtime against Alabama?
Yeah, I mean they can play up to their competition, but only so much. They've never really dominated their competition.
So if Gonzaga plays its very best game of the year and UCLA plays its normal game, will I still be watching it after halftime?
You can if you want to, but I wouldn't. I would not.
Okay, so you got Baylor going up against Gonzaga. Number one against number one.
Yes, and the Legion of Boom was the nickname I was thinking of, just for my own sanity. Sorry.
Okay, well, back to this Final Four. Next Monday, JJ has Baylor against Gonzaga. You got 60 seconds. Tell me about that game. What you expect and how it will end.
Oh, that'd be an aesthetically pleasing national championship game. I think both teams would score very well. I mean, they're both good defensive teams, but I just don't think either one would be equipped to stop one another. I don't know who stops Jalen Suggs. I don't know who stops Davion Mitchell. I haven't really seen anybody do any of that. But also you have Maceo Teague, Jared Butler.
Okay, make sure you put some school names to some of these players because
For
everybody
Baylor.
don't know everybody.
Well, if you've been listening to the podcast, the same people I've mentioned. But yeah, just this episode. Sorry, you just have a great cast of players on each side.
A lot of talent. Will this go down as one of the best championship games ever? My best that I ever saw was Duke against UNLV years ago. Should I expect this to be a great game?
I would imagine it would be an all-timer. I can't even think off the top of my head what the best championship game I've seen is, but
Okay. Well, we're going to get ready to wrap it up, but I want to backtrack. The best championship game I ever saw was Duke, but it wasn't when Duke played UNLV, the Running Raps. It was when they played my homies from Arkansas, Woolpig Suey. That was my best ever championship game. Jay, we get ready to wrap it up. What's your closing words?
I have no closing words except for I'm just going to go with Illinois and North Carolina is probably the best one I can remember off the top of my head.
Okay. Hey, well, this is a wrap. You've been listening to Breakdown, SEC versus Big Ten. We're going to be doing some more regarding the NFL draft soon, but prior to the draft, we're going to get into basketball one last time, I'm sure, and focus a lot on transfers. It's a lot of transfers making the world go round right now. See y'all next time. Peace. Mr. Jackson. You gave the Big Ten a D-.
You gave him a D.
I did. We gotta put more laughter into our next conversation.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You living up. I forgot to look at Gonzaga because I just didn't think Gonzaga had any transfers, uh, especially from the SEC.
Oh, they've gotten a bunch of transfers. They've been living off of transfers for a while.
You know, if we went down here listing transfers that are in the Final Four, I couldn't find one from the Big Ten.
Like who? Well, how many teams? Michigan was only.
There's 4 teams. Are there any transfer from a Big Ten school?
Oh.
That's in the playoff. Michigan's not in the playoff.
Well, this is the first time they've had 4 teams west of the Mississippi in the Final Four ever since they.
Why didn't you mention that?
I don't know. We didn't have time. You were.
Well, we went
I was
35
going
minutes.
to, but I was going to come back to it, but then
Well, sometimes I take the lead. When I said what you got left for me or something like that.
Well, at that point, maybe I should have wrote it down, but I didn't even think to do it.
That's a good point. I did not realize that. First time ever?
2 from Texas, 1 from Washington, 1 from California. Yeah,
Wow.
Yeah, there's always an East Coast. I mean, you think about all the blue bloods. Think about Kentucky, Indiana, North Carolina, Duke.
I messed up.
Kansas isn't, but
Yeah. I messed up a lot of brackets years ago picking West Coast teams. And except for the Arizona team back in the day, and occasionally you get another team that will do good, they just seem to fizzle out way too early for me. So I just basically, about 10 years ago, I pretty much stopped picking them to go beyond the second round.
well, you might want to amend that rule as it pertains to Gonzaga and UCLA. UCLA is supposed to be a top 5 team next year. Gonzaga's a powerhouse now going forward.
They might lose. Gonzaga going to lose a lot of people. Who they got coming in?
McDonald's All-Americans. That's the
They
difference.
don't get McDonald's All-American.
You just said that they got. We just talked about the McDonald's All-American that they got. This is now a pattern.
So Gonzaga is no longer mid-major.
They don't operate like one.
So they are not one. Whether they operate like one or not, are they a mid-major?
No, they're just tied to a conference that's technically a mid-major, but they don't. I mean, they don't recruit like one. They don't fund their athletic program like one.
Okay.
Yeah, Gonzaga is next level. They're as major as any. I mean, they and BYU are different in that conference.
So I want to the next go around. I want to focus a lot, and I'll do some research on transfers, especially Big Ten and SEC players who have gone on to other schools, or else
Incoming or outgoing.
You're right, incoming or outgoing.
Mm-hmm.
I'll do some research because we're going to talk about the changing landscape of basketball, and hopefully I remember to bring up that Final Four west of the Mississippi. It'll probably come up again before. I want to be people to first hear it from us.
Yeah, we can talk about like which programs will be hurt and which programs will be helped in football and basketball because I think it's going to help.
We got all summer for football. I mean,
That's true. Yeah, we can just do basketball.
Yeah. I also want to focus. I wanted to mention that the Final Four for the women. I forgot. South Carolina SEC got 1, and the Pac dominating that again. They got 2.
Yeah.
On the women's side.
And in the Big 12, they should have Baylor, but they have UConn. Yeah, but they absolutely should have Baylor. That was a foul. You saw that?
I saw that, but you know what? Those things happen.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to be crying any tears for Kim Mulkey or whatever.
Yeah. Glad to get that over.